Welcome to the Northern Business Podcast. I'm Graham Robb from Recognition PR. And as usual, the Northern Business Podcast is sponsored by Virtue Motors, which has dealerships all around the country, delivering on the greatest brands available in the automotive sector. But today is a bit different because we're recording this as live from the Make UK Northern Conference and Expo in County Durham, and I've got the privilege of chairing the event, and so we need another presenter to do the podcast. Jamie Collis, are you ready?
I am, right, yes. So I'm taking over from Graham today in the hot seat. Going to be joined by some exhibitors, some speakers, Chief Executive of Make UK, going to talk to us about what's happening in the sector, how important the role of the companies in the north are to manufacturing, and also some preview thoughts on the industrial strategy, which is coming out very soon.
And look, I was at the dinner last night, and it's great. There's loads of people very enthused. You'll hear a lot of buzzwords, innovation, particularly the enterprise. There's lots of exciting times for manufacturing. They've obviously got some problems as well, but I'm sure that you'll find some fascinating people to talk to on today's podcast.
Fantastic. So let's just jump in straight away with our first guest. I'm delighted to say our first guest. We're going to start at the very top. We've got Stephen Phipson, Chief Executive of Make UK. Why is it important to have an event like this in the north of England for Make UK?
Well, as you know, we cover the whole of the UK, but the north, and particularly the northeast where we are today, is a hotbed of innovation, new technology and regeneration. So we've seen some of those big traditional industrial companies disappear over time over the last 20 years. But now we're seeing new types of companies coming here. We're seeing the net zero agenda. I'm just hearing the hammering in the background.
It's a traditional manufacturing area. Even at a hotel, they're building things.
They are. But we're seeing all these new technologies coming in. If you look at Teesside, fantastic, and cybersecurity in Newcastle, some of the critical issues and critical sectors like defence, we've got a good presence here. So really important to be here, really important to support those innovative new types of businesses.
And what do you think the sort of the mood is at the moment in terms of?
It's been a tough time. There's no doubt about it. I mean, we've manufacturing. If we looked at the overall statistics for last year, it was flat. There wasn't any growth in the manufacturing sector. We had that continuing on to the first quarter. Second quarter, we've seen a pickup, mainly in export orders. Although, interestingly, we've seen the US drop out of the top three for the first time in history.
Wow.
Normally, the top three are the EU, Asia and the US. US has always been number two. It's about 60 billion a year of exports for manufacturers in the UK. And for the first time, we've seen it drop out with all the Trump tariff uncertainty.
Who's replaced it?
The Middle East, believe it or not. So we've seen a big growth in the Middle East, UAE, Saudi Arabia, these areas. Now, with all those big developments that are going on there, construction-led in many cases, but then lots of technology being deployed and lots of manufacturing opportunities there.
Excellent. So when we broadcast this on Friday, so this is as or we'll say it's Friday now. Right. We're only going to be a weekend away from the new government's industrial strategy, or the government's new industrial strategy. What's Make UK's position? What do you want to see?
Well, we have spent 2 years with the Labour Party working on this industrial strategy, both in opposition and in government. So we have a very strong relationship with the Secretary of State of Business, Johnny Reynolds. He's been a great supporter of the manufacturing sector, I must say. And actually, many of the drafts we've been working on this have got some really good elements to it. There's a few key points about it, though. First of all, it's 10 years, which is good. So it's going to be in statute, in law, that it's a 10-year strategy. Previous strategies get changed every time we change Parliament, and that's no good for manufacturers. You need certainty for long-term investment. Typical investment cycles are between 7 and 30 years. So a 10-year strategy feels about right. So that's the first good point about it. But it needs to address some fundamentals. One of the fundamentals is industrial energy costs in this country are the highest in the world. And that makes us uncompetitive. So we want to see them bring forward ideas or proposals or even actions, actually, would be better, to reduce that industrial energy cost, to make it more competitive, particularly if you're investing, if you're choosing which country to invest in. Nowadays, industrial energy costs are actually a big factor in that decision, and the UK is not the choice that you will make because you'll go to Germany or somewhere else. So we need to see them deal with that. We need to see them deal with a skill shortage. We've got an incredible skill shortage in manufacturing, about 55,000 vacancies as we stand here at the moment out of 2.6 million people. That's a loss of about £6 billion of output each year. So they need to address it. And the current apprentice levy system that we've got has been a complete failure. If we look back from 2016 to last year, apprenticeships in engineering have declined 42%. So it's not worked. So the government needs a new process for getting youngsters into the engineering and manufacturing sector. We need to see that. And lastly, the other big point is access to finance. So this is scaling up all our new innovative startup businesses in manufacturing. The countries, I mean, in my whole career, we've been pretty useless at doing this. The UK is where all the ideas are. And then what happens is they create all these new companies. We don't finance, and the Americans come in and buy them and take them to America. So we need to stop that process. And I think the government is coming up with some good proposals to do something about that. Taking equity shares, creating funds so that SMEs can actually use startup capital from governments to get them through what we used to call the valley of death, that second round funding bit. So we need to see those fundamentals fixed. What we will see on Monday is the overarching strategy document, about 30 pages long. And then there are 8 pillars to the strategy, 8 different sectors. Advanced manufacturing is one of those. We won't see that on Monday. It will come out over the next 2 weeks, the detailed bit of it.
Right.
So the first one is the direction of travel we see on Monday.
Excellent. And you think it's going to be a positive strategy?
Well, it's a bit binary, really. I mean, if they don't show us the progress on skills and energy, then it's not going to be so positive for many people. They won't take it very seriously. And I've made that point to government many, many times. But I do expect them to do something, and we'll see. I don't know what the result is. I know they've been negotiating that in the cabinet right up until last night, so they still haven't made the decision, but we'll find out.
Excellent, interesting stuff. So, final point before I let you go and get on with the rest of the conference. What do you want delegates to take away from today? We talked about the mood before, being flat before.
Yeah.
What do you want them to be walking away with?
Many people, especially smaller businesses, are dealing with the day-to-day pressures of cost increases, the national insurance increase and wage increases and energy prices. And a lot of people are consumed by that. But today is a great opportunity to think about positive future, where innovation's coming from, where those new opportunities for manufacturing businesses are, particularly around the new green technologies and the new digital technologies. That's really, really important. And come away with some enthusiasm about the future. And I know that. I've been in manufacturing 40 years. Very resilient sector. We always bounce back, so it's giving them that motivation.
Fantastic. Stephen Phipson, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Joining me now, we've got Rachel Chambers from Seaward Electronics. Rachel, tell us a bit about the business before we get into other things.
Yeah, so I've actually only been there 3 months. Joined Seaward because I knew of them. Amazing culture, amazing business. They're owned by GMC Instruments in Germany. So we're part of a big group, and we sell electrical safety testing equipment.
And that's safety testing equipment for any type of business. It's not just big manufacturers. It's any type.
Yeah, it could be your one-man band electrician who wants a pat tester, or it could be a big manufacturer like people who have, say, automotive sector, end-of-line testing. We do a lot of power quality as well, so high power stuff as well. So, yeah, a real mixed bag. And medical we do as well.
Everything here is pat tested, by the way, just so you know.
Well, I'm just checking, actually.
Just check.
Yeah.
So you've got an eye for it.
Yeah.
Why is it important for you to come to events like this?
I guess I want to understand what everybody else is feeling, what sectors are maybe feeling some joy at the moment and what's in decline. And I guess that helps us balance as well what we're doing. So where we necessarily see a decline, which is quite challenging because it's mainly through distribution, but it's really handy for us to understand just what's going on in the market so we can then, I guess, look at where we might move and steer our business as well.
Okay. It's interesting. I was just thinking, from what you were saying before, you work with so many different sectors.
Yeah.
What excites you about manufacturing?
I don't know. I've been in manufacturing for a long time now, and I feel it's almost a bit of a privilege, especially in the Northeast. I love working here, and I want to be able to support businesses. So being on the board of Make UK is just one element, but working kind of quietly in the background with other trade organisations as well, looking at how I can help and steer. And I guess because I've worked in the sector for a while, worked in sort of R&D land as well in innovation, it's good to be able to support and provide advice as well to people.
Coming up early next week, after this podcast is broadcast, the government's going to release its industrial strategy. One interesting thing is going to be a 10-year strategy.
Yes.
You think that having a long-term strategy is the best idea?
I think with any strategy, you need a plan. And I'm glad it's a long-term plan, because I think what we've seen in the past hasn't been. And I do think that's created a massive fracture for the UK. Having a long-term plan is great. That doesn't stop it being tweaked necessarily, but I do think you need a good direction of travel. I guess I'd like to see the output of it first to see, whether it's a good thing, a bad thing. I think it is the vibes that we're getting and the focus that they're going to be doing. I think it feels like it should be a good industrial strategy.
Fantastic. Rachel, enjoy the day at the conference. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Delighted to say I'm joined by John Turner from Siemens Electrification and Automation. Is that
That's
right?
the business name, yeah. It's a mouthful.
It certainly is. Excellent. You're keynote speaker today at the event. So before we come on to that, tell us a bit about this element of the Siemens business.
Yeah, sure. So we are. I'm fortunate enough to have a base in Newcastle. So, I also have a base in Manchester and a base in Dublin. So we're very much a Great Britain and Ireland business, and we are providing, in simple terms, power solutions. Yeah, and it's a really exciting time for us because ultimately we're helping the UK decarbonise its energy ecosystem one substation at a time. That's the line I like to use, the simple line. But we are providing solutions. We can provide products. We can provide systems. We can provide IoT solutions. There's a real breadth of what we can offer. And that's a really exciting part for me. So as well as installing and solutionizing incredibly exciting assets, which we always have, it's now how we connect those assets and turn those assets into exciting either push data or data that is available to customers to make smart decisions on those assets as well. So ultimately, as well as supporting the ecosystem to decarbonize, we're encouraging it to be more smarter, and smarter decisions can be made. So really exciting time.
Fantastic. And for our viewers and listeners who weren't in the room today, what was the subject of your keynote?
Yeah, so it was great to be invited. It's always nice to share what Siemens are doing, and ultimately that was my ambition today, is almost to give like a little sort of pinch with pride use case that someone can take away. Because as a Siemens business, it may feel like, well, yeah, they're far too different than what we're doing, or far too much from a scale perspective. It's uncomparable, but we're subject to and enjoying the same incredible pace of change in the markets that we're operating in, and Siemens is embracing that. So we are very much moving towards what is known as a one tech company. That is our North Star, and as part of that, it is embracing, for example, platforms, generative AI, and ultimately how we deliver to our customers and our ecosystems. And it starts with drinking our own champagne. So how do we, as Siemens, how do we adapt to those to the challenges? What do we put in place? What have we changed? How do we fix our work streams to ensure that we can then provide these solutions? And it's not just about Siemens providing our solutions, it's about what we do with partners. We have a really exciting platform called Accelerator, where partners can join us as part of that to create what I think the phrase I like to use is provide the answers to the questions that maybe we don't have an answer for as yet. But I think we're better doing that as a partner network rather than the Siemens by itself. So we're on a journey, and that's ultimately is to become and to continue to grow as a one tech company.
Fantastic. And from being in an event like this, in a room like you've just been in, you feel that there's the capabilities in this region. I mean, you say you're a great British company.
Yeah.
But, you've got a bit of a penchant to the north, having a Newcastle base here. Is the north a great place to do manufacturing?
I have a huge. I class myself as a northerner. I'm based over in Merseyside, where I'm part of. I'm chair of the Advanced Manufacturing Growth Platform Cluster Board, as well as the day job being part of Siemens and having a base in the northeast in Hebburn. I just think that first of all, it's a great place to do business. There's so much to enjoy in the northeast, and the skills are there. Everyone talks about workforce transformation, the skills gap. What we have done in my business is we've created great partnerships with local education establishments to ensure there is that pathway through from education into apprenticeships and then onwards. In my business alone, we've 12 apprenticeships graduate just this year, and all 12 have received full-time employment offers as a result of doing that. So that immediately tells you these are the skills for today and the skills for tomorrow. They're there. The competence is there. The individuals are there. For me, it's a real hotbed for developing the growth in my business.
Skills is one of the big issues, has been and is one of the big issues. It's also one of the main areas that Make UK have pushed the government on for the industrial strategy, which is out next week. Have you got any views on the industrial strategy in terms of what you'd like to see or what you're expecting from it?
Yeah, I think what is great to see is clarity. I think that's the number one, clarity and certainty of what that is in that plan. I think for any business, that's an overriding positive to see that. I would like to see some emphasis on skills and workforce. I think you can't do anything without people. Yeah, and that includes digital. AI generation, as AI develops, we're still going to need people to develop that, and the right people. So how do we fill that skills gap? It's not just about the skills that we need to do the day job, it's the skills that we don't even know about yet. And how do we transform the workforce that we have today to be the workforce of tomorrow? There has to the whole workforce transformation and the skills agenda has to be at the kernel of anything that we're trying to do here.
Fantastic. John, thank you very much for joining us on Northern Business Podcast. We really appreciate it. And thanks for being at Make UK today.
Really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I'm delighted to say joining me now is Nikki Sayer from Casper Customs. Tell us a bit about the business before we start.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome.
So yeah, Nikki Sayer, Casper Customs. Casper Customs is part of the Casper Group, which is a marine services company. So we do anything and everything to do with shipping. We own vessels as well, so like a huge range of services. And the customs division that I head up that's what it is. We do the customs declaration, so we facilitate trade. So all the manufacturers in the room today, we can help move their goods. The conversation we've been talking about this morning has all been about automation, and Casper Customs fully automated the customs process because we had to because of Brexit. We were looking at increasing the number of declarations by 2,000%. And the other conversation today is about skills, and there were no trained customs agents because we didn't need them. So yeah, that's what.
So this is the perfect place to use it today.
Absolutely, yeah.
And obviously the northeast, and in Yorkshire as well. We've got Humber with the ports there, and obviously the ports we have in the northeast and Teesside and Sunderland and Blyth and Newcastle. So the north is a very active place for import-export.
It is. It's very, the way we describe it is the north is open for trade. There's still so much goes into the south, Felixstowe and Southampton, etc. But there's obviously when they go into there's obviously congestion and trucks coming through the Dover and to getting pulled at Sevington and stuff like that. So it's heavily congested down there. Come up north. The ports are open for business and you don't get any of those problems as well. So we're always trying to ensure when we speak to customers, they always go through the traditional routes, and we sort of try to talk to them about, well, have you thought about different trading routes and coming or even shipping in different ways? Why are you always putting something in a container? Could you put it on a pallet in a ship? We own ships. We could help with that. We've actually got a barge as well that trades up and down the Humber. We're trying to take the trucks off the road. So yeah, there's the sustainability piece, but yeah, it's costs as well. So we talk about energy as well. You know, it's
of course,
all benefits. Yeah,
and of course on Teesside it's Freeport area.
Yes,
so
yes. You should mention that. Actually.
Yeah, so you've got involvement.
We have. Yeah, Casper Customs are the customs site operator for the Teesside Freeport. So we were the ones that actually enabled the Teesside Freeport to be the first and the biggest that was established in this country. So we've worked very closely with HMRC around the rules around sort of free ports, which have been adopted in the other free ports around the country. So yeah, we were quite excited to get involved in that. And all of the new businesses that are coming here is just so exciting. All that land there that's been developed and everything. So it's really exciting to be part of that as well, yeah.
Fantastic. Very, very positive. This is all good.
Yes,
this is all good. We've been talking to guests today about the industrial strategy, which is due out any time now, apparently. Is there something from a customs point of view that you think that should be in the industrial strategy that gives companies certainty?
Yeah, 100%. Shipping is always peaks and troughs. So freight rates will always go up and down, and we're always affected by geopolitical events and all of that stuff. So to have a bit of certainty would be great, because what we've seen is we work with a lot of the chemical companies, petrochemical companies, and we've just seen the downfall of them recently is just huge, which obviously affects shipping and the lack of tankers on the river now that we see. It's interesting because we've seen the tankers slowly get less and less, but then we've seen obviously all the offshore shipments coming in and other sort of businesses like that are involved. So the change and the evolvement of the ships that we're actually seeing. So yeah, the industrial strategy will help businesses, obviously, hopefully with the energy crisis that they have, to see these businesses maybe maintain for a bit longer, because it's been quite, we're doing their customs and we can see the customs reducing. So it's interesting from our view, what you can see what's going on, the trends and how these businesses are changing.
Fantastic. Nikki, thank you very much for joining us on Northern Business Podcast. It's been an absolute pleasure having you, and really interesting, insightful stuff I didn't know about customs.
There you go then.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Oh, I'm really lucky to have Paul Wheels from Lenovo on the podcast with us now. You're one of the sponsors today.
We are one of the main sponsors for the event, yeah.
Fantastic. See, a lot of people will know Lenovo from sort of consumer things like laptops, AirPods, those type of things. Get the name right.
Yeah.
But what's Lenovo's involvement in from the manufacturing side and supporting manufacturers?
Yeah, great question. So, not a lot of people realize that Lenovo make products right the way from your mobile device. Motorola is our brand, right the way through to cloud and everything in between. So, you've got your laptops, your PCs, your servers, your edge gateways, and so on and so forth as well. And I think edge gateways is the interesting thing in manufacturing, because what edge gateways does is enable the compute at that point. So as businesses are developing and evolving into that digital transformation, we've actually got the compute power and the partner network with software to actually help them solve those problems. So we've got like 80% of the puzzle that they need, and then it generally needs to be customized for them. So we're sort of like not just a great manufacturer of hardware. We actually make things right away from hair dryers to robots running full autonomous factories in China. But we also orchestrate and bring together and curate relationships with software providers as well, because the hardware is nothing without the software. We do make some software ourselves that enables the hardware to be easily adopted and remove the friction. But then we also have our partner network that has those solutions that we then bring together. So we've got programs like AI Innovators, which we'll test and try out the software on the hardware, be able to recommend that hardware to the market, and just try and make it easier for businesses in manufacturing or other verticals to adopt.
Oh, fantastic. So why sponsor an event like this as well as attend? What's so important for you, do you think, to support manufacturing in the north of England?
Well, I'm northern. I've lived all over the world, traveled all over the world, and I've seen some great and wonderful things. And it's one of those things I keep coming back, and I want to bring some of that energy back to the region. I think what I've identified, so I was at Intel prior to Lenovo, and I came and sponsored the event last year. And it was to try and demonstrate that it's not as complex as a lot of businesses think in regards to adopting artificial intelligence and edge computing and getting to that automation and Industry 4.0. The question I still get asked, and I was here for the dinner last night, is where do I get started? And so I like to sort of help advise on start with a problem, just one problem, and then build out from that, and then orchestrate with the relationships and the funding that's available. I was just chatting with a number of people earlier, and there is a lack of awareness that there is funding out there from the likes of UKRI to help adopting the technology. There is also an awful lot of great intellect and experience working with the universities that have got hubs that have been funded by the likes of UKRI and the government to be specific on edge computing, artificial intelligence, Industry 4.0, supply chain. But there's just a lack of awareness. And I like to come and evangelize and make people aware of the opportunity of what is around them, that it isn't as hard. There aren't as many barriers or friction to adopt.
Do you think with the introduction of all this artificial intelligence and Industry 4.0, are we, it sounds a bit grandiose and maybe, or a bit low based to say this, but are we entering a new industrial revolution? Do we think that, and particularly the north of England, has a role to play in this new age of manufacturing?
God, I mean, that's a great question, right? I mean, AI has been around for since 1950, 70 years. Yeah, there's some misconceptions of artificial intelligence, which is actually just business rules, which has been around since, the start, the first industrial revolution. I think there is definitely the industry 4.0 has been on a slow progression. I think the awareness of generative AI with ChatGPT has sparked inspiration and is sort of becoming that catalyst for businesses to go, oh, hold on, I really need to adopt this. There was a great statement by somebody earlier this morning. I wish I remember which one it was. But what they said was, it's not, AI is not going to replace jobs. It's going to replace the businesses that don't. The businesses that adopt AI, it's going to replace the ones that don't. And I think that's very, very relevant. If you look at businesses that are adopting AI, they're being able to market themselves quicker and more efficiently. They're being able to create more content. They're being able to produce things more efficiently. And even down to things like I specialize in computer vision, artificial intelligence. And with that, you can then ensure that you have a higher quality of production and manufacturing. Simply putting a camera over and having training it on what it's looking at, that simple thing could reduce your waste dramatically. You're getting your return of investment straight away. It's not all about putting robots in instantly and everything. There's pieces of the puzzle that you can put in to start to build up that confidence. And I think that's one of the things that is the barrier, is the challenge of the word that I've lost here, the culture within a business. That there's a lot of friction on that. People are scared of losing their jobs, and take them on the journey. Worked on a great manufacturing one in Spain a couple of years ago. There was a lot of sort of pushback from the business, from the people on the floor. But then when we got them involved and they were helping us train the models with a tool we had so they could do it really easily, all of a sudden they got the aha moment of how that was going to help them. And especially there's a lot of people in manufacturing, especially in this region, right? We have thousands of jobs available every month, but nobody wants to take them. We've got an aging workforce, and we've got to try and bridge that gap. And I think automation is going to do that. But I think there's also new technologies and tools that people will be able to use to make the job exciting as well.
Fantastic. Boy, that's been really, really interesting, really insightful. Thank you very much for joining us on Northern Business Podcast today.
Thanks very much, Rob.
Thank you.
Cheers now. Cheers.
So joining me now on Northern Business Podcast, I have Peter Fairley from Fairley Young Group. Peter, tell us a bit about the business so our audience can find out a bit more about you.
Yeah. Hi, Jimmy. Thanks for having us on.
Very well.
So Fairley Gun Group's got the bold vision to champion and support British manufacturing. And at the highest macro level, the way we're doing that is through acquisition. So we're taking on engineering-centric and manufacturing businesses that are looking for fresh ownership, new vision, just to be revitalised. And owners look to move on for a multitude of reasons. That's at the high level, but filtering down to actually operation, delivering manufacturing and engineering services. Each business, we're sector agnostic as a whole for the vision. So we bring in the businesses and we provide them the support and the network and the community to be able to do whatever they're good at, whatever has developed them to get them to the position they're at. And at the moment, the group is roughly split into two fractions. We've got industrial radiography side of it and control panels and machinery automation side of it.
Okay. Oh, fantastic. Excellent. So how many businesses in the group at the moment?
There's 4 in the group at the moment.
I see. Yeah. Always looking for more.
Yeah.
Always looking for more. There's your pitch. So we'll talk about this in a second. You're on one of the panels today, but if you weren't on one of the panels, you'd be here anyway, I'm sure. Why would you come to an event like this?
Yeah, so the events like this with the likes of Make UK, for manufacturing and engineering, for whatever reason, they tend to be silos. So coming to networks and events like this allows manufacturers, engineering businesses to meet other ones, and the potential for opportunities, for business growth, for collaboration. We should be in an era of collaboration now rather than competing. And just coming out there, see what other people are up to, see what the big guys are up to. Can you get involved with it? How do you get involved with it? You don't know what questions to ask or who to ask. Where do you even start? So coming to stuff like this, it just opens them horizons a bit.
Oh, fantastic. So the panel you're on today is Manufacturing Made Smarter.
Yeah.
What does that mean to you?
So made smarter, that's wrapped up in in all sorts.
It's a very broad thing, but yeah, from your perspective.
Which is great. That's why the whole scheme's come about like that, because it opens it up to such a variety of people. But for us, we had a big need, which I'll talk about this afternoon. We had a big need for sorting our internal operation systems out. So we've took on these businesses. They're only small businesses. Like, we've got 4, 3 of them have 10 people, 1 of them have 20 people. So the systems in there don't need to be overly complicated or massive, but they need it to be better. So we had a big need for building the foundation that'll allow them businesses to grow. And as we bring in other businesses to the group, it means we've then got a system we can just drop in.
Okay,
So that's what it was for us.
Excellent. I'm sure it's going to be a fascinating discussion. We're asking guests on the Northern Business Podcast today about the industrial strategy which is coming out. Obviously, I'm not going to ask you about the detail because nobody knows the detail anyway. Obviously, one of the things they're talking about is it being a 10-year strategy, which I think must be a good thing because it's about certainty, I suppose. What's your view?
So with the strategy, I think they've really got to make it clear and easy for SMEs to get involved. I don't know how they do that, but if they can create a clear pathway for SMEs to not have to jump through crazy hoops or go through really long tendering processes or really long verification processes, that'll massively open it up for manufacturing in the UK, but especially in the Northeast, as there's quite a lot of small SME manufacturing and engineering businesses just looking for that opportunity.
Is that where the innovation comes from the SMEs, that they can feed into the supply chain with more creative ideas, do you think?
There's definitely an element of that because they've got the agility. If they're smaller, they can adapt, they can change, they can try stuff without having to go through a load of red tape, without having this huge tanker to try and change. So they've got that agility and that flexibility to try stuff and be creative and maybe just come up with a solution the larger businesses can it.
Fantastic. Peter, thanks very much for joining us on the Northern Business Podcast. Really appreciate it.
Cheers.
So I'm delighted to say, joining me now on Northern Business Podcast, I have Kieran Fothergill, who's director of Kipling's Lifts based in Stockton. Just one of the businesses that you're involved with. I think that's the main one why you're here today at Make UK. So for our audience, tell us a bit about the business.
Well, we've been proudly representing the people of Teesside, in particular Stockton, where we've been for 170 years on the same site. We're in all things lifts. We are in access products. We're in the service side of things as well, in new installs, modernisations, a big repair job. So whatever your lift needs are, Pickering's Lifts can supply.
Fantastic. The business obviously was founded as a manufacturing business. Actually, made the lifts yourself. That's not quite the case now, but you're still very much involved in manufacturing.
It's really interesting looking at how businesses stay relevant and how they reinvent themselves over a period of time. And there's no more interesting case study in my mind than my family business, Pickering's Lifts. If you look back to the 1850s when the company was founded, what you tended to find was that this is before limited companies. This is before we had companies incorporated as we know them today. You essentially had 3 main ingredients. You had a lawyer, always. You had the inventor, so the entrepreneur, and you had an accountant. It was a simple three-way setup. Now, Pickering's Lifts back then was founded to supply lifting equipment in mine shafts because the elevator as we know it today didn't exist then. When Jonathan Pickering, who was the founder of the company, decided to bring my 6 times generation back great-grandfather on board, he did so because he wanted to go into the marine engineering space at the time, and that was docks and pulley systems for docking ships. But my ancestor was from Hartlepool, and John Fothergill, my ancestor, became an indispensable part of the evolution of the business in through the 1860s and 70s, to the point when Jonathan Pickering died unexpectedly in 1891. There was only one man. Certainly the lawyer and the accountant weren't up for running the business themselves, so I hear. So there was one man who could do the job, and at that time he was a great inventor. At that time he decided that he would go into looking at the elevator as we know it today, and some of the first patents he got in the 1880s. So it's really interesting to look at business history and manufacturing history that exists in this part of the world. It's fascinating. I think it's something that we should be proud of, particularly on the 200th anniversary of the Stockton to Darlington Railway.
Fantastic. And fast forwarding through to the 21st century, the business is still going, still relevant.
Absolutely.
And part of this proud Northeast next generation of manufacturing.
Yes. So I got caught up in the history books there in my head.
That's all right. It's fascinating. You can just be there for hours.
It's when it's part of your blood and part of your DNA. I think it's something that we should celebrate. But yes, the business has had to reinvent itself, certainly in the latter part of the 20th century, and then into turn of the century in the last 20 years. I would say that naturally there's been a shift in manufacturing trends in the UK. Britain can no longer compete, and it's to do with energy costs. It's to do with labour costs. I think fundamentally, Britain finds it difficult to compete with Spain or Italy or Greece, let alone China. Which is the case that which is just a fact of the matter. So what we need to do in Britain is to be more and more niche, but all more and more complex and technologically advanced. So we're no different. The projects that we do are particularly skilled projects and that require a level that we can provide which differentiates us from our competitors. But and I think that's probably where UK manufacturing is going. We need to be world leaders, world beaters in certain industries of the future, and where we can compete. We've got the knowledge base, we've got the skills of training, we've got the universities, we've got the R&D facilities, and the government should be supporting all of that. And so that's where I think where I think we're going.
Obviously, we've got the industrial strategy due to be published very shortly. Everything you've just said there, you think that should be at the core of it, and that would benefit companies, particularly in the north of England?
Yeah, absolutely. I think companies need to be incentivized to. We talk about supply chain resilience. We talk about onshoring. We talk about the national interest, and I think manufacturing is a huge part of that. It's about our national security. So the industrial strategy should speak to what our shared interests are, what our joint needs are as a nation, and then find ways to incentivize and to encourage British businesses to be part of that strategy, because I think the more we can do that, the better it is for the country.
Fantastic. Kieran, thanks very much for joining us today. Enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you very much, Jimmy. Thank you.
We've had a fantastic time at Make UK's Manufacturing Expo. I want to thank Make UK for letting us set up Northern Business Podcast here today. Spoken to some brilliant people, had some great insights. And I hope you enjoy what you've been watching and what you've been listening to. So if you'd like to take part in Northern Business Podcast, feel free to get in touch, because we'd love to hear from you. Always looking for great guests and people in business across the north of England. I want to thank my colleagues Alex Dryden and Kieran Graham, who have helped produce today's episodes. And remember, you can listen and watch the Northern Business Podcast wherever you get your podcasts from.